Chinese Communist Party is expanding its crackdown against Christians. Church members there say it's the worst crackdown since Mao's Cultural Revolution in the 1960s. But Mao could never have imagined cyberspace and social media. The Chinese government is now targeting Bible apps and Christian chat rooms. International Christian Concern reports that Christian WeChat accounts have been blocked and Bible apps have been removed from the China App Store. Here with more is China Aid President Bob Fu. His organization has just released its 2020 report on persecution in China. What do you make of this latest news that China is now targeting Christian chat rooms and Bible apps?
Thank you, Gary. Good to be with you again. Yeah, to remove and suspend all the Bible-related apps and teaching accounts in the public WeChat rooms with millions of followers shows the Chinese Communist Party is determined to erase and destroy the Chinese Christian churches. Even from the virtual side. So with the so-called pandemic, of course, excuses, now the Christian churches, including both the official government-sanctioned churches and the independent house churches, they were all not allowed to operate even in the virtual setting.
That's amazing. It's not just shutting the doors of buildings, but also shutting doors online. So let's go a little broader now, Bob. What did China Aid find after examining Chinese government actions against Christians and other people of faith during 2020?
China Aid has found with our in-depth research that in 2020, the persecution against Christian churches, against the human rights lawyers, both in the government-sanctioned church and the house churches have reached really to the worst level that we have not seen since the Cultural Revolution in 1960s. This is the third year of the Communist Party's so-called Sinicization campaign, which means anything that is found not compatible with the President Xi's ideology, communism, socialism, is going to be regarded as the enemy of the state ideology. And we have seen even the church members who are organizing prayer meetings online had been targeted with the criminal and administrative detention. Just in the past few days, the largest house church in Beijing, the Beijing Zion Church, have two of their pastors being kidnapped and even sentenced to 10 days administrative detention. And we have seen, of course, under this Sinicization campaign, pastors receive 4.5 years imprisonment for refusing to put the Communist Party's posters, propaganda in their church building, for refusing to put a Communist Party's national flag at their parking lot. Of course, we have seen Pastor Wang Yi, who was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment for preaching a sermon, pleading for President Xi to suspend his crackdown, asking him to repent so that he can get salvation. That is 9 years imprisonment.
And part of that, Bob, I know we've talked in the past about facial recognition software, social credit scoring, people being denied jobs, promotions. They have low scores. They're not considered to be good communists. They don't have favors. So how is that scoring affecting Christians or people who are not part of the government-approved, government-controlled church?
Yes, 2020 marked really the first year, I think, is the whole called the national the digital authoritarianism rule with literally 2.6 billion face recognition cameras has been installed all over China, which means every Chinese will have 2 face recognition cameras are following them. The so-called social credit score had been also instated with the big data plan. If you are a Christian, if you are especially a Christian pastor or a house church leader or anyone who has a religious faith that is not compatible with communism will guaranteed have a lower score, which means you may be banned from even buying a train ticket or air flight tickets, and which means you couldn't get a promotion, which means your family members cannot join the civil servant test or join the military. So you are regarded absolutely as second or third class citizens.
A lot of Americans
Yes.
are afraid that may come here with vaccine passports and so forth. So finally, Bob, on this program and other CBN News programs, we've reported for some time now about the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of the ethnic Uyghurs. Many of our viewers don't realize that not all Uyghurs are Muslim. There are quite a few Uyghur Christians. Tell us about them, and do they suffer the same oppression?
Yes, you're right, Gary. The Uyghur Christians and Uyghur Muslims and even the other minorities like Kazakhs had been suffering the genocide, as the former Secretary Pompeo designated. Between 1 to 3 million of them are still in the concentration camp. China Aid just rescued a Kazakh family. The mother suffered at least 16 months in the concentration camp. She herself was abused, and also she was eyewitness, seeing a systematic government-organized forced prostitution. How can we, with a good conscience, deal with a government committing such a grave genocide and a crime against humanity, and yet we're still treating this as business as usual, like these American companies are doing in China? So it's a time to have a wake-up call.
Okay. China Aid President Bob Fu. Thank you, Bob, for providing those insights today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary, for having me.